Hi, and welcome to the iModernize podcast, technology news, views, and insights for businesses on the IBM platform. I'm your host, Amanda Blackburn, and I'm the Director of Marketing at Profound Logic Software. Today, I'm joined by Amar Patel, Chief Revenue Officer of Connectria. Connectria is a leading provider of managed services, hosting, and cloud migration solutions. Amar joined Connectria in 2018 after almost 2 decades of sales leadership experience in major tech providers, including Dell and Rackspace. Amar, it's wonderful to have you with us.
Thanks for the amazing introduction. I appreciate it, Amanda, and thank you to the Profound Logic team for having us today as well.
Absolutely. So we just announced this week that Profound Logic and Connectria are partnering to provide end-to-end solutions for businesses on IBM. And our listeners probably know a little bit more about Profound Logic as a modernization and transformation solutions provider, but tell our listeners more about Connectria and your place in the IBM and power systems world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as the audience listens, you'll find out that this has the potential to be a very powerful partnership, especially for our market and our customers that will consume our technologies. But before we go there, let me intimate you to Connectria. We've been around for a little over 25 years. We started as an IT consultancy in 1996, doing work around mainframe and professional services specific to customers like Deutsche Bank and Union Pacific. And our founder and CEO, Rich Wademan, at the time realized that there was a wonderful opportunity to actually start providing managed services to this tranche of customers. And so at that point, we did get into the IBM I series, as it was called at the time. So your AS400 and your I series from a managed services perspective. And what we really focused on at that point in the early 2000s was the first layer, which is your system administration layer. There's certainly a lack of skill set in this community to perform your traditional systems management. So namely doing the monitoring of the systems, performing the backups, doing the OS or the PTF upgrades. A lot of organizations need help with doing the manual batch jobs, setting up and administering the disaster recovery. And so we really started providing those types of services to our customers. As the years went on, we started realizing that security and compliance was becoming a bigger topic and a bigger need for customers, as you saw a lot of hacks within software and intrusions within the environment. And so we actually built out a security operations center to help fulfill that need. Some of those elements would be around think about two-factor authentication support or anti-malware and antivirus, things of that sort, centralized logging, config management, file integrity monitoring, and a whole host of services around effectively improving the security posture and ensuring that we keep the bad guys out. And through the years, we keep evolving our solution as well. We introduced a security information and event management tool and a web application tool and things of that sort. So we're constantly looking for ways to improve our offering, as well as we learn about new ways that folks can attack systems. And then the last leg of it was just making sure that we built a strong expertise around the human capital aspect. So going back to the skill set issue, we have a very strong training and development inside of our headquarters, where we develop and groom folks to manage these systems as effectively as possible. And so that was the core of our offering. Through those years, we have realized that the market has adopted other technologies, but we also realized that these power systems don't travel alone. They're dependent to other technologies, other applications, and other platforms. So through those years, we've built a very nice VMware business, very nice x86 business, and a very nice compliance practice as well, where we are HIPAA and high trust and PCI certified. So we do have those chops to help folks, whether it's through the auditing process or to make sure that their infrastructure and their procedures and protocols are compliant to those standards. And then most recently, over the past few years, I would say, we have delved into public cloud as well, and public cloud namely into AWS and Azure. And we might get into in the later questions, some of the activity that we're seeing out there as well. So 250 employees and highly profitable. We've got majority of our customers here in North America, but we do have a global presence, namely in Amsterdam, and we've got a data center out there. So now we're starting to put a full-fledged effort to go try to conquer that market to a certain extent. And yeah, I've been with Connectria myself for 2 years and absolutely enjoying the ride. We feel that we are certainly in a differentiated position when it comes to managed services specific to the power systems. And over the past year, we've really started looking at, what are those partners out there that can help enable transformation within customers, where Connectria can also grow our revenue streams. And that's where Profound Logic certainly seems very interesting, because you guys are one of the leaders when it comes to transformation and modernization at the app and mobile and database level. And so it's a very nice complement to our services.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely one of the things that we run into when we're working with businesses on their transformation journey is even some of the businesses we work with may have a limited staff, or their staff is busy spending a lot of time, handling maintenance and management tasks. So the ability to find a path to modernization can be very challenging.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think there's a number of ways to look at the application side, and we run into a lot of customers that are looking to modernize in a few different areas. First, you look at the legacy ERPs, if I can call them legacy. Sometimes I get in trouble for that, but
Mhm.
there's still a very vast audience that is running JD Edwards or Infor or Lawson, as an example. And so a big part of our customer base is those ERP systems. And these folks are tasked to figure out, do I continue to remain on the platform? Do I look to modernize? Do I move it to the cloud? There's a lot more options, but there's a lot of pros and cons that go into it as well. And that doesn't even talk about this vast community of homegrown apps that are still running on these systems. And so understanding what to do with those systems, do you switch actually applications and platforms? And so I think for us, how we're evolving is not just providing the managed services, but partnering with folks like yourself, but also building that consulting and professional services aspect to turn more into an advisory. And we try to take an agnostic approach when it comes to that. And so I think that's what customers want, and I think that's the value that they like to have, in a trusted advisor type of setup like ours.
Yeah, and something that we see, and you probably do as well, you kind of touched on this, is sometimes, for people who have been businesses that have been on this platform for a while, you can have kind of a mishmash of homegrown apps, some JD Edwards that may have been, had some custom development added into it, maybe some packaged apps as well. So if you were to work with a company, with that type of infrastructure, how would you go about supporting that business with their managed services needs?
Yeah, sure. So from our standpoint, we generally draw the line at the operating system level and down. And
Hmm.
so for us, that is just effectively where we operate and where we provide our services. And so
Hmm.
we will help do those version upgrades, those OS upgrades, those PTF upgrades. And so those mundane sysad activities that just have to happen. We still have customers that call us that are running, I don't know, V5, R1 or R4 as an example. So some very old versions of the platform that they need help modernizing, and they're generally tasked to, figure out, well, okay, what do I do with my application? Then what do I do with the system, and how do I make this as seamless as possible without putting forth a lot of energy and effort and dollars and resources into this modernization or transformation. But I think companies like Profound Logic are coming in and providing a unique and a different way of looking at that. And so that's what drives some of our excitement with
Hmm.
this partnership. specifically around the managed services, we will go into a few different types of engagements. So a couple of use cases or scenarios might be, I have a power system running in my own data center, and I'm up for a maintenance upgrade, or I'm up for a version upgrade, or this box just needs to be replaced by the newer version because I just need more horsepower. So sometimes that remains with the box. You extend out of that, sometimes that comes with the data center. So a lot of organizations are looking to entertain a corporate data center exit strategy, and this is more of that capex to opex discussion that you might run into, and
Hmm.
trying to move their systems into the quote unquote cloud. So sometimes that's driven by a true data center exit strategy. That's not only your power system, but that's everything else that remains in the data center, all of your storage and your network needs as well. And so we will go in and evaluate those critical business requirements and those critical technical requirements, and we'll put a plan together. The plan generally is I'd say a very low barrier of entry to doing business with Connectria. And what I mean by that is, if customers don't have the desire to get out of the data center just yet, well, we provide remote management services. So that's almost a crawl, walk, run approach. So remote management is very simply put, we will plug in our managed services and our tooling and our expertise into your environment, and we'll provide your 24/7, 365 services as we would normally do. And so that gives the organization an opportunity to get to know Connectria and enjoy the services that we offer. And at some point, if they do want to exit the data center, that takes us to the run part. The run part is we have built our own IBM iCloud. We've got 2 data centers in St. Louis. We've got one in Dallas, and I had mentioned the one in Amsterdam. And we've got an iCloud where you don't have to go buy an expensive piece of gear. You can go rent LPARs and storage capacity, through our model. And so that helps customers move from doing it yourself model, doing it in your own data center model, to leveraging our cloud services, and that enables them to take advantage of that run piece as well. And so I do think that there's a number of different ways to potentially skin that cat.
Hmm.
The part of the technology that we're excited about, and this is, I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but might as well just keep flowing here.
That's okay. If you're excited about it, let's hear it.
Yeah, it's the future, right? So where
Right.
are we headed? So today the customers will have an option of doing it in your own data center, maybe taking it to a managed service provider like Connectria, but we are seeing this very interesting convergence in the space. So for the longest time, customers had just a couple of options, I guess. And over the past 12 months, we've seen a lot of activity in this space. It's very dynamic, and really what it boils down to is all of your big 3, call it big 4, hyperscale public cloud providers are looking to get into this space, or they have gotten into this space. And so the list goes as follows. You've got Google and Google Compute Cloud and their platform that have now deployed power systems inside of their data center to provide a hybrid connectivity. And you have Azure, who have partnered with SkyTap, who have now deployed a power systems model inside of their data centers to provide a provisioning and a ubiquitous cloud type consumption effort for power systems customers. And then you also have IBM themselves. There's a lot of press in the news with what's happening with IBM at the corporate level, and they've built out and have plans to build out many power system deployments with their IBM cloud. And so it's great validation that, for us, because this tells us that this technology is still there. Folks are still running their mission critical workloads on this technology, and it's going to be here for a long time. When you see these big hyperscalers invest and put an effort in it, that just gives us tremendous validation. We're in talks with AWS to see where there's interest there, and we do feel that we could provide a great solution for them as well. But at the end of the day, the punchline is it's a Connectria anywhere model. We are maybe a Switzerland when it comes to all of these different infrastructure as a service platforms that have been created, because we provide that next important critical layer, which is the managed services. And so none of these situations is a competitive scenario for us. It's actually an opportunity because we can partner with Google or Azure and SkyTap or AWS or even IBM themselves, and we have, to provide managed services. Because at the end of the day, you can build an infrastructure as a stack and solve that technical challenge, but someone still has to solve the management challenge, and that's where we come in and shine.
Yeah, it's really funny. Back in the day, about let's say 15 years ago, when I was in the Oracle space, I remember going to one of Oracle's big conferences and Larry Ellison swearing up and down the cloud was just a fad and it wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And if fast forward to today, where it's just becoming this essential part of businesses and their future direction.
Yeah, so true. And you mentioned Larry Ellison. I've got buddies that work in the OCI part of the business, which is their Oracle Cloud, and that business is doing fairly well from their standpoint as well. So it's an investment area, and they're starting to see traction. So yeah, I think that whole all of those cloud myths are out the door. And there's a lot of those cloud myths. It's not secure, and it's not stable,
Mhm.
and it doesn't
Yeah.
perform. All of those myths are not only out the door, but you're also starting to see that in most cases, it's actually quite the opposite. The cloud can be secure, the cloud can be far more performant, far more compliant, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and you touched on security, which kind of goes into my next question. So I know, at least on our end, a couple of the industries that we work very closely with, and they're pervasive in the IBMI space, is banking and healthcare.
Sure.
And both of those industries obviously come with, many, regulations and they security is number one. Tell me a little bit more about how Connectria works, not just with those industries, but any company when it comes to network and security operations and their compliance and regulatory needs.
Yeah, no, that's certainly a great topic, and it is a topic that is discussed on almost every pre-sales and partner conversation. We do fairly well in those spaces as well. We've got some of the world's largest banks that do business with us, and I'd say almost 20% of our customer base is healthcare or healthcare in nature. So all the way from large pharma to some hospital institutions to insurance providers, really that whole gamut, and the list goes on. We actually, there's a lot of retailers that we do business with, and it just shows the diversity that the platform has as well. So as far as how our approach to security and compliance, so if you put yourself in an organization's shoes, they are tasked to improve their security posture. And by doing, what that means is you have to build out a security operations center. So one way to do it is, let's go hire all of our security professionals, the eyes on glass, so to speak, and let's go buy all of the different tooling, and let's weave it together and integrate it into our workflow and build out that practice yourself. I
Hmm.
think if you're a larger organization, you probably do have the budget and the resources, and it might make sense to do that. It is certainly an undertaking. The other way to do that is look at someone like Connectria that you can outsource that to, because you are turning that into a service by using us. And so we have a we have a model where you can put your gear in all of your infrastructure inside of our data center. You can use our data center, or we can provide security services inside of your data center. So there's not, it goes back to that lower, very, very low barrier of entry with regards to consuming our services. But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, security is everywhere. It's the employee's responsibility. It's the organization's responsibility, and we feel that it's Connectria's responsibility as well. We approach it with a shared responsibility model, And so we'll work with your auditors. Banking and retail PCI is something that is certainly of utmost importance. HIPAA or becoming high trust is important. And what we do is we will work with your auditors and make sure that we check all of those boxes that that apply to us, but we'll also work with your organization to make sure that we guide and advise you on the right processes and protocols to ensure you're compliant as well. And we do have skin in the game. So if you're HIPAA, for example, we will engage in a business associate agreement. So the document effectively says that, hey, both of these organizations have a shared responsibility in ensuring that our infrastructure is compliant. And so that gives that peace of mind to our customer base that, okay, Connectria, is not only they're backing up what they're saying, by engaging in a business associate agreement. So, so those are some of the ways that we engage. As far as the services that we provide, not to be redundant, but I touched on it a little bit. At the end of the day, it's can we provide security within your infrastructure, so your server, storage, and compute nodes. We extend that out to the routing and switching and the data center layer, and then it even gets into the network aspect as well. And we do that by a couple of different ways. So making sure that you have the authentication secure. So we do offer that two-factor authentication. We do put tooling in place and software in place that provides anti-malware and antivirus solutions. When it comes to traffic, so this is a big part of it as well. When it comes to all of the traffic that comes in and out of the data center, that comes in and out of your employees' network, we do have centralized logging, and we do have file integrity monitoring in place, and endpoint security in place, intrusion detection and prevention in place. So all of these different tools and the experts behind them to ensure that there's no malicious traffic, that there's no thwarts within your security posture, and it's all aggregated by a SIM tool. So that's security, information, and event management. So it makes it, so when I say aggregate, it aggregates it, and it allows our security professionals to react quickly, right? So that's the next leg of the stool, which is, well, okay, you're getting all of this data in real time. You're protecting and precluding all of this data in real time. And then what happens at the ingestion period? At the ingestion period, our security professionals have everything at their fingertips to react quickly, because there's always a human element, right? So our eyes on glass, our security operations center will be able to react and remediate and fix problems as quickly as they occur. So that part is important to note as well. But with all that said, we provide a rather full offering at a very we feel attractive model, consumption model for our customers, and it's a very important and a big part of our offering.
Sure. And it's good to know. I mean, I know for a lot of businesses that we work with as well, having that flexibility of being able to maybe start, have an entry point, like you said, crawl, walk, run, we want to work with them and be as flexible with them as possible, to address, maybe this is a starting point, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that they have as many solutions, and that their business is as secure, and having all of the bells and whistles that you guys probably offer along with that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I was going to ask you, I mean, obviously 2020 has not been a normal year, for
To
many
say the
reasons.
least. Yeah.
It's been interesting. It's also been challenging for a lot of businesses,
Yep.
and for ISVs. And I was going to ask you, in light of this new normal, what do you think that customers are looking for heading into the new year that they weren't before?
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, this is a topic we have to discuss. So, in early March, late February, when COVID-19 hit and we realized that this was a real deal, and we had to sit back and get into the dark room and figure out how to pivot our business model, what this meant to us. You know, do we reforecast? Do we have to have different messaging to our customers? And we realized that you know, first is let's go to our existing customers and let's make sure that they're doing okay. Let's make sure we do everything we can to help them. And because of our diverse business, there were certainly some customers that were being impacted, certain retailers, certain organizations that serve impacted industries like your restaurant industries, and so we worked with them to better evaluate their infrastructure, to give them some better models to help either reduce costs or to become more productive by offering remote work solutions. Sometimes, you know, customers had set up DR, and maybe, you know, that was a place to cut down a little bit. And and if you were doing all of that in your own data center, to be able to pivot that quickly from a cost structure perspective or a productivity perspective, it would have been very, very difficult. But those customers that were already doing business with us were able to make changes on the fly and really help them get back to their core business and help them survive through all of this because of because of the flexibility and agility that we have with our services model. So that's the first thing that I'd like to point out. And you know what happens there is customers will renew, customers will stick with you for the long haul, and they're certainly going to remember that. And you know, we have an incredibly low churn rate. You know, I always knock on wood when I say this, and we have really high net promoter scores and customer sat ratings, and it all comes down to, you know, those moments where we, you know, actually reach out and help our customers. So that was the first thing, is just making sure our customers are set. And you know, we've had one of the best churn years that we've ever had in our history. So so that's the first point. The second point is, well, how do you go attract new customers, and how do you go you know, really go figure that part of it out? What we did do was we started uh, investing in more indirect efforts, and what that means is let's go rally this ecosystem, right? It's a very small world in the power system space, in the IBMI space, and let's go rally the partners that from a communal aspect, and let's hold hands and let's go together and let's start figuring out solutions together and see what we can do to go help our customers. And that's, you know, that's where this Profound Logic partnership actually derived from, right? This is a new partnership that we're super excited about, and we're both learning from each other more and more about how we can help not only each other but consumers of this platform. So we built out, we invested in a partner channel and really started driving that part of it. And then we just started strengthening our messaging around ways that we could help, and it's all remote, you know, remote workforce, remote management. You know, you don't necessarily have to touch your data center. You don't necessarily have to go visit a data center. And so we did some unique things as far as, you know, some folks have to check the box to go see a data center, and nobody could travel to St. Louis or Dallas. And so we set up remote cameras in a very secure way in the meet me rooms to check those boxes. So it does require you to get creative in certain areas, and so you know, we certainly pivoted in those different aspects, and it's actually helped us land customers and get some projects underway, and helped us get through this year. So
Yeah. How about, you know, with the customer, you know, you mentioned IBMI AS400 power systems is an ecosystem. It absolutely is. Sometimes it feels like a very small world, even though there's a surprising number of businesses that run on this platform or who have this platform in their infrastructure. And, you know, are you seeing any unique challenges because of the pandemic to these businesses that you're working with on managed services?
the unique challenges are, it's it's almost forcing organizations to take another look at how they're doing business and how they're running business. And that could
Mhm.
be anywhere from your infrastructure, your management, your application suite. It could even be as obviously down to your headcount and where you're productive, where you might have some redundancies, and where you have some opportunities to trim costs. Simply because you have to. It has been industry specific. You see some organizations that are actually thriving from this. You see some organizations that are just absolutely suffering from this as well. So it's certainly nuanced and dependent on some of those facets. From our perspective, you know, we count our blessings every day that we have been able to continue our journey and really get not only help from you know from a customer perspective and our employees, but we feel that this has allowed us to look at the world a little bit differently as well, and understand that customers actually do have more options than they've ever had before. I think a lot of folks that have been on that have been in this ecosystem for decades and decades, just kind of saw the run of the mill, right? It is what it is, and there's a few players here, and there's a few options here, but there is just enormous innovation in this space, and Profound Logic and Connectria are the ones that are driving a lot of that innovation. And I think we're poised to see some of those efforts come to fruition next year as customers start realizing that there's better and unique and different ways of doing things that will help them become more productive or reduce costs or become more agile. I mean, there's a number of different business triggers that can derive from this.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're talking to businesses, and let me back up a little bit. One of the things that we run into a lot, and I'm curious to know what your thoughts are, is technical debt. So when you're talking to a business that has been on a platform going on however many decades, you know, there can be a lot of challenges to those businesses specifically because of that old code. Maybe some of the systems aren't set up optimally. What advice do you want to give business leaders, IT admins who are looking at that infrastructure and are faced with this technical debt, and how to resolve that?
Yeah, sure. No, it's definitely one of those things that you have to address, and it's just like anything, you have to have a strategy around it. Technical debt will exist, and it does exist. It's a matter of how much appetite do you have for it, and how much can you tolerate. But it's also how much technical debt is building month over month or year over year. So if you can take a step back and just pause and evaluate that part of it. If you've got technical debt that is building slowly, and you can tolerate that until other things happen where you are forced, there's impending events, for example, that you have to renew your maintenance, or your hardware just runs out of steam, or you've got application or software contracts that you need to renew. There's a number of other factors that might drive that. If you do see your tech debt accumulating quite a bit, you're probably going to be in trouble if you let that accumulate too much. And so you got to find a way to draw that balance. And it goes back to what are your business goals? What are your technical goals? What is it that you're out there to achieve on the innovation side as well?
Sure.
So yeah, I think there's a few different ways to look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually releasing a white paper pretty quickly that is focused on technical debt. And as I was researching it, it was really interesting to see, how much of that technical debt lies below the surface. If you think of it almost like an iceberg, and there's the tip of it, that is what the business sees, and then there's the, below the water is really the chunk of it. And a lot of that does have to do with the infrastructure and the OS and how things have been operating over time, and how that might get in the way of any additional movements that the business wants to make, let's say to the cloud,
Yeah.
and how that might get in the way of that.
Yeah, and my advice, it seems like you definitely know a lot more about this than I do, but my one advice is do what you can to not let technical debt build up, and it'll definitely bite you, and it'll be a much harder path to get rid of it, if you let it build up too much, and have an open mind of it. It's very convenient to just keep doing what you're doing, but you got to have a very open mind, mainly because you do have a lot of options. There's been just been so much innovation in this space. You talk about what Profound Logic is doing, not only at the code level, at the API level, at the application or UI or mobile or database level, wherever your technical debt exists, and it may be, all across the board.
Mhm.
There are absolute ways to look at that differently and to get rid of that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're coming up at the end of our conversation here, unfortunately, but I wanted to ask really quickly, what's next for Connectria, as far as, any new news coming down the pipe, or what you guys are looking to do in the public cloud space?
Sure. Yeah, so we certainly do have some news coming down the pike. I'd say stay tuned, as it's not a shareable piece, but what I can tell you about our broader strategy is we feel that we are in a very unique position to extend our leadership position in this category, and that's specifically providing world-class managed services, for our customers, and also extending. And that's extending the leadership position, but then it's also extending our route to market. Our route to market has traditionally been really great marketing, whether that's through digital or event strategies or things of that sort. But I do think that we have this wonderful opportunity to go scale our efforts through channel partners like Profound Logic, and there's a number of partnerships that exist there. It could be partnering with some of those ERP implementation partners. It could be, we're developing a lot of partnerships around IBM business partners and VARs and resellers that are really, I think, starting to get on board that cloud can be an option for their business. And it can be a lucrative option for those business partners. All of the different tooling partners that are out there. There's all of these tooling and software partners that are part of that ecosystem, and so I think there's some synergies to be had there. And then there's the modernization side, and that's where the two companies and ourselves can really go out there and make an impact. So I think we can get some really nice revenue uptake through that particular strategy. And then the last part is we've touched on it, but that is, our approach to providing managed services to the power system platform. And what I'm personally excited about is there's just not a barrier of entry to doing business with us. It does not matter to us where these systems live. It can be in your data center, in my data center, in a colo's data center. It can be in one of these hyperscale public cloud data centers. And Connectria is primed and ready to go plug in and provide that managed services and those security services that every customer needs at some level. So we think that we have this opportunity to really scale our revenues, and so I do think that uh, not to undermine what's happening at the macro. We do have to have that empathy and make sure that we're doing all the right things to get through this period and support our customers as much as we can. But the next couple of years, we see an accelerated path to land more customers, to grow our revenues even that much more.
Yeah, and I think in some ways that I've noticed, for some businesses, I mean, obviously, a lot of businesses are struggling right now, but in a lot of ways, this is kind of force businesses to look at their IT and look at their infrastructure and look at their business systems and try to figure out, how do we meet this new normal and what are the solutions and who are the providers that we can work with right now, especially when it comes to remote management and things along those lines, with people not being able to be in the work environment. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting time for sure.
Yeah, there's no question. And you talk about this whole concept of TCO and ROI. We have we have built some pretty intense models that we can go into an organization, speak with the CIO and CFO, and really help them understand, how to build a strong ROI and value proposition to look at the world a different way. And
Hmm.
it's hard dollar ROI as well. These aren't just numbers that look good on a graph. it helps address quite a few of the challenges that they're having right now. Technical debt is absolutely one of them. Performance and speed, uptime and availability, security and compliance. Those are all aspects that we look at. Skill set and whether to invest in a services like ourselves that has those skill sets that are so hard to find. So we can really capture a very strong TCO to enable our customers to make those right decisions.
Yep, absolutely. So one last question for you. Speaking of the quarantine, how have you been keeping busy during this time? Have you picked up any new hobbies or any
Yeah.
other than work?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question, and I certainly appreciate that. So, in our executive team was quick to pull the trigger as far as sending all of our employees home, giving them the right tools and systems to not skip a beat. We're a 24/7, 365 organization, and so the good thing is we already had redundancy, but we're a headquartered centric organization, and so we had to close down the office and make the move. So that was a little bit of a shift for me personally. I'm generally accustomed to being in the office and being amongst our folks, and that's just kind of the way I'm wired. So I'd say that first month was an absolute adjustment. It was a shock and awe to a certain extent, but here we are, quite a few months later. You adjust and you get used to it. So checkbox one, I know how to operate now in the home office. We've made that work. It's still hard. I've got a 2-year-old and then another baby on the way and 2 dogs. So, you
Oh,
still
wow.
have to deal with the new normal, and the kid will sometimes get loose and he'll show up on a Zoom call. So you have to just kind of deal with that. So other than that, as far as picking up new hobbies, you know, the, uh, the only thing that I can probably comment on there is no longer could you go to the gym. So I normally would like to spend a few days in the gym, and so my wife and I built out this quasi home gym. We got one of those uh, Nordic track bikes that we use. So you got to find ways to adjust. So that keeps me busy as well. And then other than that, it's just time with the family.
Yeah, it definitely puts things in perspective. Moving to a home environment has definitely been challenging, and now we have to be teachers as well as workers, and so it's been interesting. But yeah, it's good to hear that you made that adjustment, and it sounds like from a business perspective, Connectria did that as well, and so is Profound. So yeah, I'm actually really excited to see what happens, going into the new year. Hopefully things will get better from a lot of perspectives. But yeah, just having the opportunity to have these conversations with businesses who want that kind of end-to-end, approach to their business and their infrastructure, and helping them, giving them everything that Connectria and Profound can offer. So I think that's going to be really exciting.
I couldn't agree with you more. Yep. And I
Awesome.
I think I think both of our organizations have a very aligned culture. We tend to be eternal optimists, and we are all trying to figure this out together. So I'm excited that we have more opportunities together down the road. But I'm very thankful and appreciative of the time today, and look forward to many more great things happening between our organizations.
Absolutely. I really appreciate your time. It was awesome talking to you. So yeah, thanks once again to Amar Patel from Connectria. And for everyone listening in, I want to thank you as well for joining us again for another iModernize podcast. And please stay tuned for future topics. But in the meanwhile, everybody take care, be safe, and we'll talk to you next time.